Alright guys, I'm making this video because there's a device that I've been using for like the past 8 months. And I'm not a huge fan of emulation, but when I do, it's normally when I'm on the go, when I'm not home. A lot of times I'll be at work or wherever and I just want to play a game real quick. And this is what I use. It's called a GPD or Gamepad Digital XD. I think this thing's from either China or Japan. But let me just show you this thing. Now, if you didn't know any better, some people might think that this was a new 3DS or a 3DS XL. It looks a lot like it. But, as you can see, one screen. And it's got dual analog sticks. Pretty basic, button layout. You got the two triggers on the back. You got your 4 buttons. You got your 2 analogs. You got your D-pad. Let me just turn this thing on for you. This device right here, this GPD XD, this one actually came in 32 gigabytes. They have a 64 gigabyte model. I think that one's a little bit more expensive. I'm sure it is. But you can throw an SD card in there. I think you can add, I added another 32 gigs, so I got a 64 gig, gigs of memory in my system. This program I actually loaded on there, Legacy ROM. It kind of gets rid of a lot of the unused or unneeded software that came with the GPD XD. But let me just show you guys this thing. Let me start off by saying now I've emulated on a computer, on a tablet, on my phone with a Bluetooth controller, and all that stuff's great. But I wanted a device that had the physical buttons attached to the thing, and when I found this, and it's not the most expensive item, but it's not the cheapest either. But when I found this, I wanted to roll the dice on it, and I'm glad I did. So when you get this thing, and some of you might be familiar with this application, but it's called Happy Chick. Let me just show you. Okay, so Happy Chick, it's got a huge list of stuff you can download, but all the stuff that you have downloaded, you can actually open over here. There's a menu for it. And yeah, guys, you can emulate Dreamcast with this thing. I think you can pretty much emulate anything Dreamcast and before. I've tried to do PS2 on this thing. It doesn't work out that well. But PSP works great. PS1 works great. You can do Nintendo 64, NES, Super NES. Hell, I do Sega Saturn on this thing using a different emulator. But this is I think this is GigaWing right here for the Dreamcast. An amazing shooter. And I'll just show you real quick. The thing works smooth. There's actually there's a mini HDMI out right here. You can actually, I've hooked this thing to my TV before, so it works awesome. I've actually hooked it to this computer monitor before as well. Trying to play with one hand here, but as you see, this thing, it's smooth. The frame rate. If I didn't know any better, I would say it's almost the same as a regular Dreamcast. But anyway, you can get on the Google Play Store with this thing since it is an Android device. You don't have to use Happy Chick. Here's a PS1 emulator that I actually bought from the Google Play Store. And I think I own all of these games. I'm not one of those guys that just emulates. Okay, I'm not going to say for every game that I have, on my system memory, but most of my games I have the physical copy for. But, you know, PS1, you know, same thing. And, you know, this emulator actually, it's got a pretty good menu system. You know, here's Harmful Park. And the fact that you can actually HDMI this thing to your TV, and I've got PS4 controllers to work with this thing. I haven't gotten any other controller to work. I've tried Xbox. I've tried a few other controllers, some third-party PC controllers. None of those work. The PS4 controller, although you do have to configure it, and if you don't know how to do that, it can be kind of tricky. Not too bad, but you know, the PS4 controller works great. You know, there's a lot of Japanese imports. Some I have, and some that I don't. You know, this one's kind of pricey if you look for it. Harmful Park, but the fact that I can actually play it, and that I can play it on the go. I mean, this thing's awesome. It's actually got the touchscreen controls too, if you want to go that route. I don't know why you would, but anyway, the PS1 stuff, it works great. You know, I would suggest if you get one of these, you know, go on the Google Play Store, and, you know, any great emulators that you know about or that you've used before, I suggest you get and download those emulators. Some of them are free, you know, some of them cost a few bucks. You know, the stock emulators on this thing are, you know, okay. You know, they're not great. The Dreamcast emulator on this thing is awesome. It's the only great Dreamcast emulator that I know of. You know, I got the original packaging for this thing. It had some weird, they were written in English, but it had like a weird phrase on the back. I forget exactly what it said, but it was pretty bizarre. You know, I'll make another video with this thing hooked up to my TV, and I'll actually show I'll hook it up with an HDMI cable and a controller and everything. I'll show you guys the box, but you know, this thing is great. You know, if I'm at a retro game store and I find a game that I've been thinking about, or, you know, kind of looking at online for a while, you know, I can take this and I can play that game and figure out if I really want to invest the money in it. Not that I have a lot of money right now, but you know, it's a great tool. I'm at work right now, and I used to bring gaming consoles with me to work when it got slow. You know, there was a time where our computer crashed for 2 weeks, and I literally had nothing to do here other than clean the shop. And I had a PS4 here, and, you know, that thing got me through some pretty hard times. And, you know, with this, I can just throw this thing in my backpack, and, you know, it works great. You know, these things, you know, if you try to look for one online, you can probably find one for about $140. You know, maybe used a little bit less, you know, maybe a little bit more. But, you know, I didn't pay that much for this, you know. Again, it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's not the most expensive. It's pretty much a Google tablet with a control pad. You know, I recommend this thing. I've had it for about 8 months, and it's my go-to. If I don't have a Vita or a new 3DS XL on me, you know, most likely I have this with me in my backpack. So the GPD XD, guys, you know, thanks for watching. Take care.